Hi and welcome to the string operation series. This is the first lesson in the series and we are going to talk about Ascii. Objectives of this lesson. We will study some standard ways to represent text as numbers on the computer. Representing text. So far we have represented in our program things like numbers and Boolean values. By Boolean values I mean, for example, the flags in the flags register. And by numbers I just mean the usual numbers that we have seen so far. We have learned about signed and unsigned numbers and so on. But then comes the question, how can we represent text? Which means, how can we print letters to the console, or how can the computer keep letters in memory? The answer is, as expected, a standard. Ascii is the American standard code for information interchange. It defines numeric values for basic symbols. For example, the English alphabet and also for capital letters, the digits, punctuation symbols, and some control codes. Every symbol is of size 7 bits. You might be wondering why 7 bits and not 8 bits. The 8 bits computer were not always present. There was a time before the computers with bytes of size 8 bits. So, for the most part, we are usually going to have bit number 8 to be 0 in this representation. Ascii is a worldwide standard. For the most part, everybody knows it. It was originally created for use on teleprinters, which means that it was built for data communication. We can see in this picture a teleprinter. A teleprinter is a machine a bit more advanced than a telegraph. You don't have to remember the codes yourself. You just type letters, you type text on your keyboard, and then the machine encodes this text as some numeric codes. And then those codes are transferred, for example, on a wire. Then when the other side gets those codes from the wire, it decodes those numbers and finds out the original text. Finally, it prints the text on some paper, for example, this paper on this picture. That's why you can see on the Ascii code some codes which are mostly used for data communications, and they are not in use today because we don't have those teleprinters today. The Ascii code was first used commercially at 1963 as a 7-bit teleprinter code for American Telephone and Telegraph's TWX network. This is how the Ascii table looks like. We can see the first part of the table here. It contains many characters which are not printable. Those characters are control codes, which were used for communication in the past. These days, most of those codes are not being used. Next we have the printable characters. Here we have some punctuation symbols, the digits, the capital letters, and the small letters. You don't have to remember this table by heart, just make sure that you understand how it looks like. The printable symbols. Those are symbols that could be actually printed to the screen. Almost all of the interval 20 to 7F contains printable symbols. The control codes are the first part of the table. Most of those, as we said before, are not in use today. And it consists of almost all of the interval 0 to 1F. Some basic symbols that it worth remembering. Capital A to capital Z can be located in 41 to 5A. A to Z is located in 61 until 7A. And the digits 0 to 9 are located in 30 until 39. Some special symbols that you should know about. The null symbol is at location 0. This is a pretty important symbol. We are going to deal with it later. And the space symbol. You might be wondering, what is the space? Let's look, for example, on this text. Special symbols. We have a space here between those two words. This space is going to be represented like this. 20 in base 16. Some other special symbols that we are going to deal with in a more detailed way in the near future. New line. In different operation systems, there are different ways to represent new line. And by new line, I mean, for example, when you have a text and you move from the current line to the new line. There is a special character to mean that you want to move to the new line. There are two main ways to do it. The first one is called carriage return, and it has the code D. And the next one is called line feed, and it has the code A. In Windows, for example, if you want to mark a new line, you have to use those two characters, one after the other. You have to put first D and then A. In Linux, for example, you should only use the A character. We are going to deal with these subtleties later. Unicode. Unicode is a standard for text representation for most of the known writing systems, which means that whatever character you can probably think about, Unicode has it. Unicode has a few encoding implementations, which means that it could be implemented in a few ways. One of those ways is UTF-8. UTF-8 is a character encoding that implements Unicode. It is very common these days, mostly on the World Wide Web, and it was designed for backwards compatibility with Ascii, which is one of its very main features. It means that the first 128 characters are the same as the Ascii code. In this course, we are going to only discuss Ascii. And don't worry, you could always extend to UTF-8 later if you want. For example, if you want to write in Japanese or Chinese, you will probably want to use UTF-8. Summary of what we've learned in this lesson. Ascii is a standard way to encode some very simple symbols into 7 bits. Unicode is a standard way to encode almost any known character to the human race. UTF-8 is a very common character encoding to implement Unicode. UTF-8's 128 first symbols are the same as Ascii's 128 first symbols, which means that UTF-8 has some kind of backwards compatibility mechanism to be able to work with the old Ascii standard way to encode data. Exercises. There aren't really any exercises this time. Just make sure to study the printable part of the Ascii table. There is no need to learn it by heart. Don't worry. As time will pass, you will remember more and more of this table. See you on the next lesson.